Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. We're playing some Hollow Knight today. Sort of a fresh save. Yeah, because, you know, I've been talking about it a bunch this week, and AGDQ just started today, and it kicked off with a Hollow Knight speedrun, which was pretty sweet, so why not? Yeah. That's all there is to say about that. This week on this channel, we finally finished Monster Boy, and that's all there is to say about that. And so I started up my Doom 2016 playthrough, which will go on for, you know, probably like a month. But then I'm done with Doom. That's all the Doom videos I have. But, you know, it goes out with a bang, so that's good. Aside from that, Final Fantasy XII is still going on for quite a while. And then it'll be Final Fantasy 13, and then 15, and then the ending of 3, and then Mystic Quest, and then the Final Fantasy Tactics games. So, still plenty of that. After Doom is done, we're gonna just examine what's going on. I'll look at some games maybe I want to try out. Otherwise, maybe I'll start uploading Metroid. I don't know. We'll see what people want at that point. I mean, the first Metroid game is not a long LP. We also had my top 10 games of 2018 video come out this week. Always nice to look back and reflect on the year, and it was a pretty decent year. And we had roll manging. And that's the week. On the Exploring series, we had a video on SCP-354, which was very popular video, which is good. But, you know, in the video I'm like, yeah, so this SCP and the exploration log, it's pretty divisive. Some people really like it, and some people really hate it. And then the comments are all like, I love this SCP, this is amazing. And then they're also like, wow, this is one of the worst SCP, this is so terrible, these shitty writers. And it's just like, yep, that's what I said. I, for one, like it, because, you know, I'm okay with not being told everything, but I can see how people would consider it lazy writing. But it was popular, and that's what matters. That's what matters to me.
Bakala, man?
Cur. Calls you a cur. It's great. And he's got the life ender. It's awesome. I also put out a video then on SCP-1048, the Builder Bear, which by itself didn't really warrant a video, but I'm glad I included that whole tale because I think that enhanced it quite a bit. So, you know, not as popular as 354, but it was something. And that is the last extra SCP video I'll be putting out, because starting this Thursday, I will put out the polls to decide the next series I cover. And so that'll take the place of the extra SCP video every week. Although I'm not going to guarantee I'm doing an extra side video every week. I'm going to try, you know, I'm going to try to be optimistic about it. But if I, you know, have to deal with like a big, like 20+ minute SCP video, I can't guarantee that I'll also put out an extra video on something else. You know, we'll see. But this week I worked on the video for the Pattern Screamers, which was not simple. So I'm glad that I don't have to do an extra video this week. But it should still placate those that are looking for other... God damn it. Those that are looking for other series other than SCP. But, you know, SCP is still going to be the main series. So those people will also still be happy. Hopefully. I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, I guess. We'll see how it all plays out. You know, at this point, I don't think I can, like, fuck up my channel irredeemably. So, if this is a mistake and really I should just be an SCP channel for another year, okay, we'll find that out. Or something else. We'll see. But yeah, the Pattern Screamers video was tricky, to say the least. It's not a simple concept, and I think I ended up explaining it well. Except my only issue now is, am I correct? Like, did I actually understand it properly myself so that I could explain? Like, my understanding, my explanation for my understanding, I think is alright. It's just, I don't know if my understanding's correct or not. That, I guess we will have to wait and see. But it's a 20-minute video, 22-minute video, I think. So, you know, throw a couple ads in there and you can't go wrong. Now that we are into January, of course, the ad rates crash quite a bit, but so far I'm actually not horrified. So far, it seems pretty livable, which is good. But that's still putting out SCP content. I don't know what's going to happen once I start diverging. But you live and learn. Yeah, so I think next week I'm talking about the O Death SCP, like the Death Cave, where it goes to a parallel world where everything's dead, or something like that. I actually have not read it yet. I've been holding off reading it, because I knew I was going to do it at some point, so I'll just read it, you know, when I'm about to do it, which is now. So, I'll read it. But it's another DJ Cactus one, I think, and he's probably my favorite author on the SCP Wiki at this point, so I'm sure it's pretty good. Yeah, so anyways, moving on to, well, to roll Mangg, I guess. I actually, believe it or not, as crazy as this sounds, I had 3 RPG sessions this week. I was a part of 3 RPG sessions in 1 week. One of those, of course, was Stars Without Number, Roll Mangg, and that's the one I want to talk about the most. But 2 of them were with my family playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's right, I liked it enough to do 2 sessions. One was on New Year's Day, and the other was yesterday. So let's start with Stars Without Number, see how long that goes, and then talk about D&D. So Stars Without Number, we were on the bulk freighter with 27,000 passengers, citizens of Avalon. And we were on our way to a new planet to colonize it and set up a new home for the people of Avalon. And on the way, we were forced to refuel. Now, I don't know how much of the book Ziggy has read. I don't think he's read the whole thing. So, I don't know if he's aware or not. But, normally, in Stars Without Number, you have to refuel after every jump. Oh, I forgot he was named. I was like, let me talk to this guy. He seems cool. Now you can sort of alleviate that with a bunch of fuel bunkers, so maybe he built the bulk freighter to have like 5 fuel bunkers for some reason. I don't know. But it was about the halfway point of the journey when he decided that the bulk freighter needed to stop at a refueling station. And so I pondered the possibility of just using the Excelsior's fuel scoop to slowly siphon fuel onto the Elephant, the bulk freighter, so that we never have to stop anywhere. Because I knew if we stopped anywhere, there was going to be trouble. Maybe not immediately, but there was going to be trouble. Because that's just what a DM does. That's what a DM does. Is they look for ways to cause trouble, and so that was it. Not that using the Excelsior to do that would be trouble-free, but it would probably be a little bit more manageable. It would be harder for a DM to come up with something that would be really problematic without being just utter bullshit. It's sort of a meta thing to think. Well, in general, I think Katsu would just not want to stop anywhere, since we'd basically hijacked this ship full of 27,000 people. Like, it's just better if we don't interact with anybody else. But we stopped because my precognition told me that nothing bad was going to happen on this fuel station. I was like, okay, that's good enough. Of course, Ziggy engineered it so that the bad stuff would happen later because of us stopping at the fuel station, but nothing specifically bad would happen at the fuel station. So, he beat me there. But, you know, he's in a tricky spot with my precog stuff just looking at every future possibility within, you know, a certain scope. He's got to think of some shit. So anyways, we stop. Of course, everyone, all the passengers want to get off the ship and roam around and stretch and blah, blah, blah. You know, their cramped quarters covered in shit and they're starving and just... yeah. But it just was not feasible to allow 27,000 people to just roam this refueling station. It just was not that big. And so Mert calculated, like, you know, in a perfect world, everyone would have 29 minutes to roam the refueling station before we had to send out another 1,000 people. But, you know, things just don't work like that, and it wasn't going to work like that, and I was just like, it's not worth it. But we did have to take care of all the waste and refuse and all that stuff building up in the ship, so we decided to have a crew of volunteers take care of dealing with all the waste. And whoever volunteered for that would be allowed to spend the rest of the time roaming the refueling station. So it was a strong incentive to join the waste management team. And so it ended up being 1,000 people that were allowed to go free on the station. But it's unlikely that we had 1,000 people on the waste management team. Some people probably lied to just be able to roam. But whatever. And so then when those 1,000 people left, we had a bit of a stampede of people that wanted to get off the ship. You know, there was confusion. People thought we were already arrived. They're wondering why these people get to go, and like, what the fuck? And they just want to get off, and all sorts of shit like that. And so, of course, I was not on the ship at the time. I was in the refueling station, like, getting a cup of coffee. Mert was in charge of handling all these people. And so he, like, fires his gun into the air, which helps a little bit, but causes a few people to rush forward even more. And he ends up, like, closing the cargo door, but a few people get, like, pressed against it. And, like, I think a few die. I managed to get back in time to heal the rest. But, yeah, it could have gone better. It was kind of like, that incident or whatever. Like, I think it was a football game or whatever in somewhere in England or something, where all those people got like just mashed against a fence and they all suffocated or something like that. It was basically like that, but Mert was responsible, so that was good. And while I was out getting my coffee, I was approached by a strange man in robes who spouted some insane nonsense to me. Because we were, like, right near some... It was like some irradiated planet or something like that, and he was like, if you want true enlightenment, you can join us on the planet, or, you know, something like that. And I was like, alright, sure. And I believe Mert was also accosted by this guy. We wanted a bit more food, and so I sent Mert to go into the refueling station where they had like a bunch of Wendy's and fast food places, and I'm like, go in there and find some food. Like, talk to these guys at these fast food places and see if you can just buy their, like, supplies and ingredients. Like, don't... Originally, he was literally gonna buy, like, he was gonna order food. And I'm like, what? This'll last a day. What are you doing? Like, this is gonna go bad immediately. Buy, like, you know, their lettuce and frozen stuff and preserved stuff. These people. So anyways, he gets a fair amount of food. It definitely helped. But while he was there, he was accosted by this guy in robes who said sort of the same stuff. And so he told the guys, like, guarding the cargo doors that were letting the 1,000 people back on the ship. He's like, if you see anybody in weird robes, you know, don't let them on. Like, okay. Like, you know, we'd have to take way better precautions than that. And I chose not to. I was like, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. They're just a couple guys. What are they going to do? So we departed. We got back on track and moved on. And we made it to the planet. And the planet seemed perfect, pretty much. It seemed like an idyllic, Earth-like, beautiful planet. And it's like, well, that's good. What's the catch? And so, you know, I was doing my precog thing, and I found out that in like 1 month's time, we'd have like a little colony set up for all the people, and we'd have things going, and then suddenly something would happen, and people were like running through the streets in like a rage, and just people were in body bag, like just horrible stuff happening. And I'm like, well, that's horrible. What is the cause of this? And so we find out that there is an infection on this planet that crops up every once in a while that causes people to sort of lose their minds and enter into like a rage state. So it's rage zombies. it is a planet of rage zombies. Which... The problem was it wasn't as an extreme a problem as it... It wasn't so bad of a problem that we would just be like, alright, let's get the hell out of here, we're done. Let's find somewhere else. Like, we were just forced to go somewhere else, because the planet is actually uninhabitable. It looks beautiful, but because of this virus, you can't live here. It wasn't that bad. There were people living here. But it was a problem, and we didn't know the cause of this infection. You know, I didn't know if this was just some outbreaks that they've had, and it continues to crop up because there are still some of these rage people sort of just living in the wilderness, and sometimes they infect one of the people in the towns, and then it spreads again, and then they wipe it out again, but not really, and it could be solved if we just kill off every last infected person, which is doable. Or we live isolated enough that we just never encounter these people. The problem was exacerbated by the fact that the planet was... The only landmass really was a big Pangea. So it was all a single landmass, meaning that you can't really isolate yourselves completely from the other people. There were other very small little islands, but they were not suitable for colonies. So it could just be that there are a few infected people around, and that's what's causing this to crop up once in a while. Or it could be something in certain water supplies, it could be some airborne thing, it could be maybe the entire bird population carries this virus, and so that's why it occasionally pops up. Who knows what exactly is the cause of it? And so I pondered, like, okay, do I want to nuke this planet? Well, that has its own troubles, because, you know, these colonists, they need to live here now, not in, like, a year. And so I'm putting them in a real shitty position here. But they need to live here now, so nuclear winter, not so great. And then I was like, well, can I raise a new landmass, and we can at least be isolated by, you know, in our own landmass? And it's like, well, that's not simple either. I was looking into theories and discussions about how to raise, like, an igneous platform or something like that. Potentially using, like, shaped nuclear blasts underwater or something. But the consensus seemed to be that this would cause a global extinction event and an ice age. And it's like, well, that's not good either. So then, you know, I'm pondering other alternatives, and it's like, well, you could potentially raise a new platform from the ocean and terraform it using some science fiction tech level 4 stuff, but that would be incredibly expensive, and we would have to take the time to find it and use it, which would probably not be quick either. And again, you know, I gotta come up with a solution. So, we did end up landing, of course. We wanted to get these people off the bulk freighter. And so while we're transporting people, the rest of us are sort of flying around, seeing what we can find. And we find near our landing spot, there's a guy in a cabin. He lives alone in his own little cabin. And so we're chatting with him. And, you know, he discusses the infection. It seems that it took his family. And he probably had to kill them, so that's nice. And apparently it's still an ongoing problem, because just like, I can't remember exactly what he said, a few weeks ago or months ago or something like that, he saw a couple of people coming over the field, and they were infected, and so he had to shoot them or something like that. And it's like, well, that's great. So they're just wandering the fields. Because this guy lives on the opposite end of the Pangea. Like, he lives on the other side of everything, all the way away from the towns. And he mentions, like, how he occasionally drives into town for supplies, and I'm like, how fucking long is this drive? And so I think Ziggy fucked up. He wanted to have... Basically, Ziggy wanted us to be near the towns. That's what he wanted. He didn't say this, but that's what he wanted. Because I think he wanted us to have, like, a sort of traditional experience here where we're you know, meeting people in a town and doing stuff like that. And so I think in one of my precog visions, to find like a good landing spot, he mentions that we land near a town. And so while we were actually in the process of landing, I'm like, why the fuck would I go near one of these towns? There's no benefit to us whatsoever. So that's why I decided to go near the other end of the Pangea, just completely isolated from them. But he put the cabin there, and then so you had to sort of like figure out, okay, this guy lives by himself, but then he goes in for supplies on the other end of the Pangea. And so he decided the Pangea is pretty small. You can drive across it in like 4 hours. So the entire planet must be just covered in water. I think basically my decision to land, away from the towns, made the planet much smaller. Who would have thought? Which is a big bummer because, you know, I want this to be like the seat of power in 500 years. And at this rate, you know, in 100 years or something like that, these people are going to have to start looking at a new planet or raising new land masses. But that's really a secondary concern right now. That's not really relevant to our campaign, I guess. That's just my own personal concern. And so he mentions, the guy in the cabin mentions that some other off-worlder arrived here like 18 months ago or something like that. And she was a scientist, and she's been studying this infection. And so maybe we should talk to her for information. This is the point where we had the nuclear discussion. But we agreed it's probably best to at least talk to this scientist and see what she has to say. And see if we can potentially figure out a way to eradicate this that doesn't involve nuclear winter or something. So that was our plan. We were going to head into town after we brought all the people down, and we were going to talk to this person. But there was a wrench in the engine, so to speak. Basically, the robed guy and one of his companions had snuck aboard the bulk freighter while we were in the refueling station. And they had gotten to the bridge. They had killed pretty much all the crew. And now they were hijacking the ship so that they could send it crashing into the planet and kill all of us in a big suicide mission. Great. What I like about these situations is that Ziggy doesn't really plan for how we will resolve the situations. Like, at this point, he just throws shit at us and just expects we'll make it out. And I like that, because that's a healthy challenge. And so, yeah, we had to work quickly. The ship was going to hit the planet in about 10 minutes. And would have likely easily eliminated our entire colony of, you know, over 27,000 people. Which would be bad. So, all of us were pretty much on the planet. And we had to find our way somehow to stop this ship from crashing into the planet. Easier said than done, but I think I came up with something pretty badass that ended up working fairly well. So, I mean, let's be real right away. There's practically no way... I don't think there's anything we really could have done. Maybe if we were extremely lucky, but you can never really count on that. I don't think there's anything we really could have done to prevent the ship from crashing at all. Like, I don't think there was a way we could have completely nullified their suicide attempt. I think we were just too late. If any of us were on the ship, it's certainly possible. But this all occurred after Mert had left for the evening. And Mert would have been on the ship, because he was the administrator, so he was helping, you know, everyone get off the ship. But since he was not there, his character just didn't exist. Which was problematic. So basically we had me and Studs on the ground level on the planet, and then we had Thomas in the Excelsior flying around because he was transporting civilians. Damn it. Should have expected that would happen. So we were undermanned and not really in great positions here. And so I thought, okay, what is the fastest way for me to get on the bridge of that ship? And it's like, well, I'm a teleporter, so that's good. You know, teleporting is fast. But I need line of sight. I need to see where I'm teleporting. That's not good. It's like, okay, well, they're on the bridge. The bridge generally has, like, a window, a viewing glass. So you can see into the bridge. That's good. Which is also true for our ship, the Excelsior. So, alright, we have a plan then. I need to teleport onto my ship through the cockpit and then teleport from the cockpit of my ship onto the bridge of the other ship. There are potential complications to this plan, but quite honestly, it was the best thing I could think of. So I'm like, alright, Thomas, you're gonna pilot my ship, and I'm gonna be standing there on the planet, and you're just going to fly it straight towards me. Without stopping. Because, remember, we only have 10 minutes, and that's 10 minutes until it hits the planet. So, really, we have less than that to sort of redirect it. So this needs to be done quickly. I can't wait for him to land the ship and for me to hop on. He has to do this full speed so we can get back up there. And, so, you know, we keep saying that his character is the best pilot in the galaxy. Which probably is not true, but he is pretty damn good. He hasn't failed yet. Until, of course, he's flying right at me and then he fails. So that's good. He gets like a partial fail. And so the partial fail meant that I had to roll a will saving throw, a mental saving throw, in order to sort of stand my ground. Because there's a big-ass ship flying directly towards me. It's not a comforting image. But I roll my will saving throw and I fail. But I have an ability for precog, I think, that allows me to spend effort to re-roll anything. For me or for anybody else. It's a really good ability. And I'm like, okay, I'll spend the effort. I'm running low on effort now, but alright. So I succeed on the mental saving throw. I teleport, which also costs an effort. And I get on the ship. So at this point, I have one effort left. We fly up towards the bulk freighter, and we're starting to approach the bridge. And Thomas, of course, needs to roll another pilot skill in order to get us lined up with the bridge. And he sort of fucks up again. He doesn't massively fail, but he does not succeed. But, sure, you know, Ziggy wants this to work. So, he's willing to compromise. And I'm like, I could spend an effort to allow you to reroll that pilot check, but then I wouldn't have effort to jump, and so you'd have to get me within 10 meters. So I could jump without effort. And he decides that's a worse idea. So we accept the partial failure, partial success, and I do end up jumping. I have no problem with my jump, which is good. But he basically sort of crashes the side of the Excelsior into the bulk freighter. And so it takes a whole bunch of damage. It's still flying, which is good, because if that broke, we were pretty fucked. If that, like, exploded. That's like the end of the campaign, because we would be stranded on this planet. But it's still flying. He floats off. I'm on the bridge, so I quickly, like, whip around, and I just fan the hammer of my revolver until one of the cultist dudes is dead. Turns out, of course, they're, like, superhuman or something, and so they're a bit more resilient. So the other guy, like, shoots me with something. I think he misses. And because I'm in power armor, keep in mind. Why wouldn't I be? He like dives behind cover. I throw a flash grenade. He's completely unprotected, so he's fucked. And then, you know, he's completely blinded, so I just rush up on him with a vibro knife, and I just start stabbing the ever-loving shit out of this dude. Because he's just fucking up all my plans for my people. And so he's pretty much out of commission, and now we have this control panel. Now, let me jump back a moment. Studs had the idea to try and hack into the ship remotely. Which in something like Sprawl, I of course would have thought of. And it would have been like, that's exactly what you should do. But the thing is, in Stars Without Number, there's really no remote hacking whatsoever. Like, the game just doesn't allow for it. It's like old school Shadowrun. Like, you always have to be plugged into something. That's just how the system is. Because otherwise, every ship battle would just be like, I'm remote hacking the other ship, and oh, it's ours now. We control everything. Like, remote hacking would just dominate the entire scene, and that's why it's not allowed. So that's why I didn't even think of it, because it's like, that just doesn't work in this game. But I hate to be the guy that just, my plans are all correct, yours are all wrong, don't come up with anything, it's stupid and wrong. I don't want to be that guy. So he came up with it, you know, he was like, I'm going to try hacking. Ziggy allowed it, because, like I said, I don't think Ziggy's read the book that clearly. And so he got to work hacking. And he did some work. It definitely did something. I think he did sort of, like, redirect the ship a little bit, but then they, like, the cultists just, like, blew up the console. Like, they just started firing at it or something like that. So it was not enough on its own to solve anything. And since they shot the console, I really had no control over it whatsoever. So it's debatable if it was actually the right move. It's hard, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And so I'm there on the bridge of this crashing ship. The consoles, the controls are all just effed. I don't know what to do. Luckily, one of the crew members was still alive, and he was, like, crawling over. And he, like, rebooted the console, and he's like, okay, if you want to, you know, redirect the ship, this is what you gotta do. You can press this, press this, press this. And I'm like, I have no pilot skills whatsoever. I neglect it, because I just focus so much on psionic skills, because I like them. So I don't have any pilot skills. I don't know what he's talking about, but he's like, all right, I'll try to do it. You get to a shipping container. And I told all the 300 civilians that were still on board, you know, I'm going to try to, like, stop the ship, but climb into one of the shipping containers and brace for impact. And that's what I told everyone. And so I could have had this crew member, like, stick around to help me, you know, do the ship, but I was like, no, this is my responsibility. You know, I gotta save everyone. This is how it's gonna be. I don't think he could have done much anyways. The ship was pretty effed. And so, of course, I don't really do anything. Like, I don't really save the ship. But it is careening now towards the ocean instead of the planet, the landmass. So that's really good. And so now there's really nothing left to do except brace for impact. So I head into, like, a bathroom so that I'm not being, like, jostled around, thrown around when we hit. So I'm in the bathroom, bracing, when suddenly the cultist guy that I stabbed a bunch is, of course, still alive. And he starts, like, crawling towards me. And so I just keep stabbing him as we crash into the ocean. So that's nice. I take, like, 9 damage. Which, unfortunately, my character's really fallen behind on HP. So it's actually quite a bit. I only had 13 total. But I survived the impact. But now we're in the ocean, and we are sinking. And I've got a bunch of, 300 civilians in shipping containers that are certainly not airtight that I have to worry about. These people will drown. And so I'm, like, crawling towards the cargo hold. And I call up Thomas. I'm like, get your ass over to where we landed. Get the Excelsior over here and back its ass up to the cargo hold. Because my plan is to use the winch cables from the Excelsior to hook onto the shipping containers and fly them out of the cargo hold. And that's fine and dandy of a plan, except water is starting to rush in, and there's only 2 of us. There's me, and then there's Phil's character, who Phil wasn't there, so we just stole his character, and like, he's helping. He's helping with this. We need the fucking help, alright? If he was there, he would have helped. And so it's just the 2 of us trying to tie on these cables onto these 3 shipping containers while we're sort of half submerged in water. It was not a perfect situation. So we get 2 of the shipping containers tied up, but we're fumbling with the 3rd. Like, we just can't seem to get the 3rd one tied on. Because at this point, we are underwater. Like, our characters are underwater fully. So, it's not pretty. So I'm like, alright, fuck it. Get these 2 shipping containers out of here now. And I'll worry about the 3rd one. And it's like, I don't want to go down with the ship. No one really does. But I will, if it comes to that. Katsu will die trying to save his people, if that's what it takes. He will not give up on them. So, the Excelsior flies away, 2 of the shipping containers head out, and we have a 3rd one here. And so I decide the only way that these people have a chance at this point is if they swim for it. That's it. And it's a really big problem because these people have lived underground their entire lives. They have never seen, a source of water bigger than a bathtub. So no one has any idea how to swim. That's problematic, but it's either swim or die. I mean, their life depends on this right here, so I open up the shipping container, water rushes in. I see that there already are a few dead bodies in there due to the impact of the ship hitting the ocean. They got thrown around. I can't do anything about that now. And so Phil and I just sort of... we see, who can actually swim or float on their own and who's struggling, the young, the old. and we help what we can. I can teleport unlimited 10 meters at a time, which definitely makes things faster, but I can't take anyone with. So it's really just for me coming back from the surface back into the ship. And so we end up saving 21 out of the 25 still living people that were in the shipping container. So 4 died in the process, and I'm sure that will haunt Katsu, but I think that was as good as I could have done. Now, unfortunately, the problems don't really end there, but the session ends there. The problems continue because now we have a giant wrecked bulk freighter in the ocean that belongs to the Explorers Guild. And so it's going to be pretty easy for the Explorers Guild to track this shit down and be like, oh, hey, do you guys know anything about this giant bulk freighter here? And so it's going to bring a lot of attention to my new colony here, and they're going to wonder how we transported all these people here, because really, you know, to transport 27,000 people to a new colony requires a big ship, almost like this bulk freighter that's lying in the ocean. So there's going to be a lot of questions, and that's the problem. Not to mention the whole rage zombie thing, which is also a problem. So I think what's going to have to happen is we're going to try and get into the wrecked ship, find like its transponder or something like that, and just send it off into space somehow. We have the Excelsior, thank God, so worst case scenario, Thomas can just fly the transponder somewhere and just throw it out the airlock. And maybe Studs can hack it to, like, remove its data about landing on this planet or anything like that. You know, he can edit it. That's priority number 1 right now. Depending on if it, like, instant transmission... instant transmission. If it immediately, like, transmitted all of its coordinates of where it's been and stuff like that. But I don't think it has. I don't think it has. Because I know the captain of the ship talked about how he was going to later modify it, modify records and stuff like that to help us out. But he's dead now, I'm pretty sure. So that's nice. So, yeah, we're going to have to deal with that. We're, of course, going to scavenge what we can from the ship. You know, there was at least 15 pounds of azurite on there. And there's going to be some other supplies, scrap metal, all sorts of stuff we can take from it to try and just get rid of the evidence and take what we can. So, that's a problem. And then there's the rage zombie problem. And really, I didn't even want to spend that long on this planet, because I've got other things to do. I'm trying to set up a republic, a new empire, an alliance across the galaxy to fight Drethik. So I can't be too freaking bothered with the people of New Avalon. But, you know, they are Katsu's people, so he'll do what he can. So, yeah, that was a pretty badass moment, though, of teleporting onto a ship in flight and then onto another ship from a ship. It was pretty badass. But the problems are just beginning. Fun stuff, though. Great campaign. Let's see my time here. Oh, we're over an hour. Oh, shit. Okay, just real quick then, just because I want to just mention the D&D stuff. So like I said, they're going through the starter set, The Lost Mines of Phandelver, and across the 2 sessions, they, like, escorted Sildar Hallwinter back to Phandalin, And I threw like a bunch of potential side quests and stuff at them. Like, I offered them a bunch of money from different characters, like, do this, do this, do this, go hunt some orcs, go find the castle, blah, 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 find Gundren, and deal with the Red Brands, who are the local gang in Phandalin. And when they left a building, they were attacked by 4 Red Brands. And so they killed 3 of them, they knocked 1 unconscious, and they were gonna, like, torture him for information. Which is something that I've done plenty of times in RPGs. But torture is not simple. Especially, you know, when you're torturing somebody for information, you sort of want them to be somewhat healthy. Like, you don't want to torture someone on the battlefield after they're, like, almost dead. Because they will likely die. And so, and if you're going to torture somebody that's almost dead, you want it to be more like psychological torture than physical torture. You know, these are... these players are not tortuous type players. So, that's a new concept to them, I think. So, my aunt, which is just wild, but... she, like, to torture this guy for information, she asked him a question, and then she, like, shoved her thumb into, like, his stab wound or something like that. And keep in mind, this guy's at, like, 0 or 1 HP or something like that. And so I'm like, alright, roll Intimidate, but good luck. And she fails, and I'm like, alright, he's dead. Like, yeah, that's you can't go about it that way. I applaud, you know, them thinking in that direction, but no, you gotta refine your torturing a little bit. Because really what you should do in that situation, if you're going to torture him physically, you heal him first. Which I know is, like, weird to think about. That's what you'd want to do, is heal my enemy. But if information is your goal and you want to torture to get it, yeah, you heal him so he can take more punishment. Anyways... so, they're like, alright, forget it. They heard about this manor on a hill near town, and that's where maybe some Red Brand stuff is going on. So they go into the manor, they go down into the cellar, and so they enter the Red Brand hideout, which is like it's a dungeon, is what it is. So they can start working their way through this dungeon, and they really, you know... my mom mentioned to them that it's my philosophy when I'm playing that if I've already gotten into combat, like open combat, I've failed. And they took, like, I just told that to my mom while we were talking one day, but she took that as, like, that's how you play RPGs. You have to think really, you know, creatively and come up with plans, and you never want to get into combat. And it's like, that's not what I meant at all. That's just how I like to play, because I love coming up with plans and doing that. And so that's like a personal challenge for me. I get into combat all the time. Like, you guys know this. Like, it's just, I try to not get into combat because I find it fun. But they took this as, like, that's how you play. And so I didn't really want her to mention this. And so I'm trying to, like, now course correct from that. But... yeah, so they took that as, like, the word of God. And so they spent, like, the whole time in that dungeon planning out, like, every room and trying to be so sneaky and stealthy and come up with plans and all that kind of stuff. Which isn't a bad thing, don't get me wrong. But at a certain point, it got to a point where they were, like, sneaking into this room and they saw, like, 2 guards. And they were like, how do we come up with a plan? Like, what are we going to do with distractions? And, oh, we smoke them out. And I honestly had to say, it's like, you know, there are 4 of you. And there are 2 of them. And, like, you can just ambush them. Like, you have surprise here. And so, like, they basically just, like, one-shotted them. I'm like, yeah, see? See? You don't need to come up with a plan for everything. Sometimes you can just apply brute force and handle things very easily. It just got to a point where they were just overthinking so much. And, you know, their plans need work. Not that my plans are flawless, clearly. But, you know, they think in certain avenues, and they have to open up their thought patterns. That's a weird statement. You know, they have to broaden their horizons when it comes with plans. And more importantly, they don't think them all the way through. That's one of the most important parts of planning is, you know, it's like a chess match where you're thinking a few moves ahead and you're thinking about what the opponent does in reaction to what you're doing. So, you know, when you're planning in D&D, you're like, okay, if I do this, they do this. And then if I do this, they do this. But if I do this, they do this. You know. And so that's sort of how you have to start to think in order to come up with the best plan that you can. And so they're not really thinking everything through logically. They're just sort of thinking way too optimistically about all of their plans. And like, well, if we just do this, this will all happen, and it'll be great. They'll all be dead. And it's like, that's not how it's going to happen. Not because I'm going to deliberately fuck it up, but I'm trying to be as logical as possible, which is maybe a harsher way to DM. But I'm just thinking, I'm basically flipping my usual pattern of coming up with plans. And so I'm thinking about, okay, if they have this plan, how would the opponent react? I'm thinking like, okay, how would Ziggy react to this plan if I had come up with it? I'm just on the other side of the DM screen. Anyways. So it's a little unfortunate they're coming up with all these plans, and that's their strategy, because I'm so experienced now at this point of doing plans. So, I kind of want Ziggy to DM for my family for like a one-shot or something like that, so I could play with them and you know, show them the ropes a little bit better. Anyways, so they eventually did clear out the whole hideout. It took them, you know, 2 sessions to do it. They didn't find the boss because they weren't, you know, it's really written so that they don't find the boss unless they're really lucky. He, like, escapes before they can see him. But they figure out that Sildar's buddy is this traitor, and Sildar's all upset about it. But now they're really on to this Black Spider. The Black Spider is running everything. He's running the show. It actually took him a while to realize that Sildar's friend was a traitor. They're like, I think he might be a traitor. And it's like this letter very explicitly states, like, from the Black Spider, hey, Yarno, you're a traitor. And it's like, good for you. Like, it seemed very explicit, but okay, anyways. So now they're trying to figure out this castle. They want to find this castle, this goblin castle, because that's where the dwarf is, and they want to rescue the dwarf. And so I basically provide them a side quest to go to this ruined town called Thunder Tree that's just covered in undead and shit and spiders and horribleness, and like, hey, there's a druid hanging out there and he probably knows where the castle is, so you should go there. And they took this very meta as like, oh, Mangg's telling us to go to this place, we gotta go there. And it's like, that's not really what I wanted, but alright. So they go to Thunder Tree, and my sister sends out one of her wolves, because now she's a level 3 ranger, she's a beastmaster. So she sends out one of her wolves to scout things out, and I'm like, alright, I'm going to have this wolf be spooked. I'm going to hit him with something big here. So they hear, like, the roar of something really big and mean, and then the wolf comes sprinting back. And so she knows the spell Speak with Animals, so she talks to her wolf, and the wolf mentions, oh, there's a dragon. And they're not so foolhardy to think that they can just rush in and take on the dragon. Now they know a little bit better. So they don't want to just fight the dragon, but they're hoping to maybe, like, negotiate with the dragon. Because I explained to them, I was like, you know, in Dungeons & Dragons, dragons are always intelligent, for the most part. Like, they can talk, and, you know, think of them sort of like Smaug from The Hobbit. So I'm like, okay, maybe we can negotiate something with the dragon, and he can show us where the castle is. He could, like, fly around. So they go up to the dragon. and the dragon is like speaking to them through the walls of the tower. So they don't actually see the dragon. It was very ominous. And the dragon basically just threatens to eat him and, you know, stuff like that. And they want to negotiate. They want to deal. And so the first they offered him money. And it's just like, you know, why wouldn't I just come out there and eat you and take your money? And this is a green dragon. And green dragons specifically love to, like, corrupt good-hearted people into evil. That's what they're all about. They're very, you know, corruptive. And so I'm like, okay, what is the best way for this dragon to corrupt these people? And it's like, well, they want something. They want something from the dragon, so there's a deal potential to be made. So what would the dragon want them to do that would corrupt them? And it's like, okay, how about the dragon asks them for a human sacrifice? It's a little on the nose, but remember, these are first-time role players. This is a pretty big concept. So it's like, all right, if you bring me a human sacrifice, I will show you where the castle is. And it's like the dragon probably doesn't even, he's not even really going to ever show them the castle. He doesn't care. But he wants to corrupt these seemingly good-hearted people. So it's like, bring me a human sacrifice. And at first they were like, oh, a human, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? But they were they were ready. They were like, okay, we're gonna have to find one. We're gonna have to find a human to sacrifice. And they were like, well, what about that druid? Actually, they kept calling him a wizard. And then at one point they were like, well, we need a human. He's a wizard. And I'm like, what the this isn't Middle Earth. Like, humans can be wizards. But they were like, well, you know, we'll try. Let's try and get that wizard. From Thunder Tree. We'll find him and we'll take him as a sacrifice. And I'm like, holy shit. To be honest, I kind of want to see how that would play out, but that's pretty fucked up. So they went around, they fought a couple big spiders, and then I think they were talking about like just leaving and like just running around or something like that. And I'm like, all right, Thunder Tree is kind of an interesting location, so I want them to stick around a little bit. So I had the druid guy like pop up because he was nearby, and I was like, okay, he'll be nearby. He heard this commotion and he checked it out, and so he approves of them killing these big spiders. He invites them into his house. They talk with this guy. He explains things, and they ask him where the castle is, because that's why they came here, to find out about the castle. And he's like, I'll tell you where the castle is, as long as you promise, when you're there, to kill every last goblin in there. Because you know, he's a druid, he cares about the balance, and the goblins are throwing off the balance. So they agree. He tells them where the castle is, and they're like, alright, that's good. They spend the night in his place. My brother-in-law still wanted to sacrifice somebody to the dragon, because he wanted to just see it. Which is, that's a very early D&D player mentality, but the others convinced him, like, we don't need to. We know where the castle is. We don't need to. Like I said, I kind of want to see that play out and have them sacrifice, but in the future, So they immediately head out. They leave Thunder Tree. They didn't want anything to do with it. And it's like, all right, well, I can't convince them otherwise. And they head into the forest, and they find the castle. And I'm like, okay, here's a castle filled with goblins. And even they knew that this was going to be a big deal. This was going to be a big problem. They would have to think cleverly about how to take out a goblin castle. And so they snuck around the castle looking for like secret entrances, which sort of worked against them, I think, but they did find a secret entrance, and they basically speed ran the castle, avoiding every encounter possible. And it was like the most direct route to the final boss. It was incredible. Yeah, so they went right to the final boss, and the final boss is a big bugbear with a lot of HP. There's a wolf in there, and he's talking to a drow, and the drow is actually a doppelganger, but she's powerful. She's like more powerful than the bugbear, so it's not an easy fight for a bunch of level 3, for 4 level 3s. And so they also went about the fight a little wrong, I would say. They forced it into a bottleneck, which would be good, because they have... Well, actually... No, it really wouldn't be good. They didn't want a bottleneck, but they forced it into a bottleneck, and so there were 4 of them and 2 of them, really. And so they were sort of bottlenecked. They couldn't move around much, and the Bugbear and the Doppelganger were just wailing on them. And the Bugbear, like, I fudged a few rolls for damage, but I wasn't fudging crits or anything like that. And, like, round 1, the Bugbear crit my mom for, like, 20-some damage, and she just dropped to the floor. And I'm like, well, that can happen. Maybe that was a little cruel of me, but it can happen. But, you know, we've got a cleric. They've got a cleric, so he'll just heal her and they'll move on. He refused to heal her. Not like directly, like, I'm not healing her. No. But really, he's just like, oh, we gotta kill the monsters. You know, I think my sister, like, encouraged him, like, you know, if you heal her, she's just gonna die again if we don't kill the monsters, so we gotta kill the monsters. And I don't think they comprehend at this point how tough some boss monsters can be. Like, they have not had any, like, 10-round combats or anything like that. So it's like, you need to keep people alive. That's a cleric's job. That's why you're a cleric. I think he really resented being a cleric, because he just wants to be a fighter. And to be honest, I don't think he really likes D&D that much. I think it's a little slow for him. So I wouldn't be shocked if we lose him as a player. And it really was a mistake to make him a cleric. So yeah, he didn't heal anybody. He didn't heal not once. And he was just like throwing hand axes. And they just got sort of obliterated. It was not pretty. Like, these guys were mean. So my mom died. Like, her character definitively died. She had 3 failed death saving throws. My brother-in-law went down, and then my sister went down, and my aunt actually fled. She got away. I did a couple opportunity attacks, but she survived them with like 2 HP, and she got out of there. I'm like, all right, you make it out. You make it back to town. And that's where we ended the session. So it was a near TPK. And I offered them the choice. I'm like, okay, you can have your character die and be dead and make a new one or whatever. Or you could be captured by the goblins. And my sister really likes her character and really likes her wolves and stuff like that, so she wanted to be captured. She didn't want to die. So now we have 1 person from the original still alive and out there, 1 person captured, and then 2 sort of newcomers. And, you know, if we lose 1 player, that's going to be pretty rough for them to have 3 players as sort of novices. So we might be adjusting things. I'm not exactly sure. And now I'm really sort of tempted to jump over to Dungeon World. Now I'm reconsidering it again. Because it's like, these people are not reading anything. Right? These people don't want to read, like, the player's handbook. You know, they don't want to read about... Like, these people would be probably comfortable never making their own character. Like, they're not that into all the nerd stuff, all the crunch and all that stuff that D&D really benefits from. So the more simple the system, probably the better. And so I could go with something even more simple. I could go with, like, Maze Rats or Knave or World of Dungeons or something like that. But I just don't think they'll get the full benefit out of D&D that they really should, and so I'm tempted to switch to Dungeon World, which has just less reading involved and is just more narrative focused. It would be, you know, the same story. I'd still use probably the Lost Mines of Phandelver and probably some other D&D campaigns, because they're not ready for some big sandbox world that they are in charge of and all that sort of stuff. I would just run D&D campaigns using Dungeon World, I think. I'm still debating. I'll see, but yeah, it's... I mean, they're still enjoying it. The others are certainly still enjoying it, but none of them really want to read a bunch of spell lists and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to end it off here. Hour and 20 minutes. A lot of talking. But check out the Pattern Screamer video tomorrow. That's going to be pretty wild. We've got more Doom 2016 and Final Fantasy 12. And the polls for the new Exploring series coming up this Thursday. Make sure to vote. And as always, if you're not sure, vote for Warcraft. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.